In the far northwestern corner of Minnesota, about 12 miles east of a little town called Argyle, there is a state park that exists because of a flour mill. Inside that mill sits a Case steam engine built in 1878, and once a year the park still fires it up and grinds real flour with it. Around the mill lie about 400 acres of river valley, prairie remnants, and some of the finest Depression-era stonework in the entire state park system. This corner of Minnesota is a long drive from almost anywhere, and that is exactly why it feels like a secret. This is Old Mill State Park, and this morning we are going to walk it. Old Mill State Park sits in Marshall County, up in the northwest corner of Minnesota, closer to Winnipeg than to Minneapolis. The park lies along the Middle River, a small stream winding between the farm towns of Argyle and Newfoundland. All the water out here drains west and then north, toward the Red River of the north and eventually Hudson Bay, which tells you something about how far north we really are. This is the Red River Valley, some of the flattest and most fertile farmland on the continent. And hidden in the middle of all that flatness is a small wooded valley with a very good story. It is a Saturday morning in late August, and we have the park almost entirely to ourselves. The walk ahead is an easy loop of about 1.5 miles, following the river valley through shady hardwoods and open grass. Late summer is a beautiful time up here. The grass is gone gold, the leaves still full, the air already carrying a little hint of fall. Northwestern Minnesota does not do crowds, and on a morning like this the loudest thing in the park is the birdsong. So settle in, because the land under our feet has a deep history to tell. To understand this landscape, you have to picture it underwater. At the end of the last ice age, meltwater pooling against the retreating ice sheet formed glacial Lake Agassiz, a freshwater lake bigger than all of the Great Lakes combined. This entire northwest corner of Minnesota lay beneath it. When the lake finally drained away, it left behind an almost perfectly level lakebed of fine silt and clay, the floor of the Red River Valley. The flatness that makes this some of the best wheat country in the world is really the bottom of a vanished inland sea. From the trail, you can feel both halves of that story at once. Look out beyond the park and the horizon runs flat as a tabletop, the old floor of Lake Agassiz stretching away under the crops. But down here, the Middle River has cut a surprisingly steep little valley into that soft lake sediment. Each time the ancient lake dropped to a lower level, the river cut its channel deeper, leaving the narrow floodplain and steep walls geologists call a young valley. It is a small river doing patient work, and it made the only real shelter for miles. As Lake Agassiz shrank, it paused at level after level, and at each pause its waves carved a shoreline. Those old shorelines survive today as long gravel ridges running for miles across the flat country, and geologists read them like tree rings of the dying lake. One of those beach ridges lies about 1 mile east of the park. Standing on it, you are standing on an ancient beach, hundreds of miles from any ocean, with prairie where the water used to be. Out here, high and dry ground like that was worth more than gold, and people have used those ridges for a very long time. Long before roads, the dry beach ridges were the natural highways of the Red River Valley, traveled first by the native peoples of this region and later by traders and settlers. In the middle of the 19th century, the ridge east of the park carried one of the famous Red River ox cart trails, the Pembina Trail, linking the settlements of the Red River country with St. Paul. Trains of wooden carts hauled furs and freight along these routes, their ungreased wheels squealing so loudly they could be heard for miles. The trail crossed the Middle River right in this neighborhood, and remarkably, traces of the old cart trail and the river crossing can still be seen today. Here is the river that made everything happen, the Middle River, easing its way through the trees below the trail. It does not look like much in late August, shallow and unhurried, gliding over sand and gravel. But this modest stream cut the valley, watered the wildlife and drew the settlers, and for a few crucial years it turned the machinery that ground this region's flour. In a country this flat, even a small river is a center of gravity. Everything we are about to see happened within earshot of this water. In 1882, the Larson family homesteaded the land where the park now stands. This was the great land rush era of the Red River Valley, when wheat farms were spreading across the Old Lakebed and every township was filling with new claims. The head of the family, Lars Larson, became the earliest miller in the area, and that skill would shape this place for generations. A farm out here could grow magnificent wheat, but wheat is not bread until somebody grinds it. The nearest mills were a long wagon haul away, and Lars Larson saw his opportunity. Somewhere under this grass lie the traces of that first farm, the fields and yards of a family betting everything on a new country. It is worth pausing on what homesteading actually meant, breaking tough prairie sod with oxen, raising buildings by hand, surviving winters that regularly dropped to 40 below. The Larsons did all of that, and then they did something harder. They decided to build machines in a landscape that seemed determined to destroy them. The next 20 years would test that determination over and over. Beginning in 1886, the Larsons built a series of mills in and around what is now the park, and the country broke them one by one. The first was a water-powered grist mill on the river, and floods destroyed it. In 1889, they rebuilt using wind power instead, a prairie windmill turning grindstones, and that mill was destroyed too. They rebuilt yet again, water-powered once more, at a spot outside the present park. Water failed, wind failed, and a lesser family would have quit milling altogether. Walking this quiet valley, it is hard not to think about that stubbornness. Every mill represented years of savings, months of labor and real engineering, and every one of them went down to flood or storm. Yet the Larsons kept rebuilding because their neighbors genuinely needed them, and because milling was the family trade. There is something very Minnesotan about solving a problem by simply refusing to stay beaten. And the final solution, when it came, arrived under its own power. The answer was steam. John Larson, son of the original homesteader, powered his mill with a Case steam engine, number 359, an 8-horsepower machine built in 1878. A steam engine cared nothing for droughts, floods, or dying winds. It burned wood, built pressure, and spun its flywheel with the same steady force in any season, driving the millstones through a long leather belt. That one machine ended 2 decades of struggle against the river and the sky, and it turned out to be nearly immortal. In 1897, the mills were moved to the spot where the old mill stands today. The building hauled about a quarter-mile downstream to its present site. The mill that survives is a simple unpainted frame building with 2 rooms, the milling room rising about 25 feet under a gabled roof of hand-split shingles. Plain as it looks, this is one of the best remaining examples of an early frame gristmill in all of western Minnesota. No architect touched it. It was built by farmers for farmers, and that is exactly why it matters. The trail is carrying us toward the historic heart of the park, where the old mill still stands beside the river with a reconstructed pioneer log cabin nearby. It is a strange and wonderful thing to hike toward a piece of working 19th century machinery in the middle of a nature preserve. Most parks protect scenery. This one also protects a tool, an honest wooden machine that fed a corner of the frontier. And in its working years, this quiet spot was anything but quiet. For the farmers of Marshall County, the Larson Mill was essential infrastructure. John Larson ground flour for his neighbors at 50 cents per sack, and wagon loads of wheat rolled down into the valley from the surrounding prairie. A grist mill in those days was more than a business. It was a gathering place where farmers waited on their grinding, traded news, and sized up the harvest. John ran the mill until about 1914, when he sold it to his cousin. The mill passed through several hands after that, but it stayed in the valley, and the valley remembered it. Even after the milling business faded, people kept coming to this valley. As early as 1901, this stretch of the Middle River was a favorite picnic ground, complete with a baseball field. In a farming country with no lakes and precious few trees, a shady valley with running water was the obvious place to gather. Church picnics, ball games, summer Sundays, this was the community's living room decades before anyone called it a park. The state was about to make it official. In 1937, the state of Minnesota purchased 285 acres here for $11,000, and a new state park was born. It was first named Middle River State Park, after the stream that runs through it. In 1951, the name was changed to Old Mill State Park, partly to avoid confusion with similar names in Marshall County, and partly to honor the old grist mill standing inside the park. It is a rare thing for a state park to be named after a machine. In this valley, the machine had earned it. The park was born in the depths of the Great Depression, and that timing shaped everything you see here. The Works Progress Administration, the federal relief program that put unemployed men to work on public projects, allocated $11,107 to build the park's facilities. Local crews gathered native split-field stone from the surrounding land and raised buildings in the National Park Service rustic style, designed to look as if they had grown out of the ground. Between 1937 and 1941, they transformed this valley. 8 of their works still stand, and together they are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Keep an eye out as we walk, because the WPA's fingerprints are everywhere in this park. A split stone water tower from 1939 rises 21 feet with a timbered top like a little lighthouse of the prairie. There is even a stone drinking fountain from the same year, with a step built into its side so children could reach the bubbler. These were relief projects, built by men who desperately needed the paycheck. Yet nobody cut corners, and 90 years later their stonework is the pride of the park. The grandest of the WPA buildings is the picnic shelter, finished in 1941. It is 57 feet long, built entirely of split-field stone collected in the park, with paired openings separated by corbelled stone piers and exposed timber trusses overhead. Inside stands a massive split stone fireplace with a graceful arch, and built into the back of its masonry are 4 cast iron cook stoves, so picnicking families could fry their supper right in the shelter. It is rustic architecture at its best, generous, sturdy, and warm. On a cold day, a fire in that fireplace makes the whole building feel alive. Just ahead lies my favorite piece of Depression-era engineering in this park, and it is not a building at all. It is a swimming hole. Remember, this is a corner of Minnesota with rich soil but almost no lakes, a hard place to cool off in an August heat wave. The WPA looked at the Little Middle River and decided that if nature would not provide a lake, they would build one. What they did next was delightfully bold. In 1939, the crews simply moved the river. A diversion dam with a 60-foot spillway steered the Middle River into a new channel, while the old river bed was shaped into a lakelet, a swimming pond separated from the new channel by an earthen dike. At the pond's outlet, they built a dam capped with split stone, spilling into a rock cascade 50 feet long, so even the overflow became a piece of landscape art. A stone beach house went up beside the water, with changing rooms and a concession stand. Out of one small river, they conjured a lake, and generations of local kids have been grateful ever since. Here is that swimming pond today, still doing its job nearly 90 years later. Families still swim here every summer, splashing in a piece of the New Deal without ever thinking about it. The stone beach house still stands, and the dam and cascade still murmur away at the outlet. There are grander waterfronts in Minnesota, but few with this much story per square foot. And the WPA saved its most daring trick for the river crossing just downstream. In 1940, the crews hung a suspension bridge across the Middle River, 80 feet of wooden deck swinging from cables anchored on massive split stone pylons over 13 feet tall. It is one of only 2 suspension bridges in the entire Minnesota State Park system, and historians single it out as a notable achievement of the rustic style. The deck floats about 10 feet above the water, and crossing it, you feel the bridge answer every footstep. It is part footpath and part carnival ride. That a tiny park in Minnesota's emptiest corner received such a structure says everything about the ambition of those years. Down in the river bottom, the forest closes in green and cool, and the valley shows you why people have always sheltered here. Elms, ashes, and box elders lean over the water, and the trail winds through the kind of riverine woods that once lined every stream in the valley. This is the landscape the ox cart drivers would have recognized, and the Larsons, and the picnickers of 1901. Very little of it survives outside these boundaries. Which brings us to the most surprising day in this park's history. In 1938, when the park was still only partly developed, an organized picnic on a single Sunday brought over 10,000 people to this valley. Think about that number out here, in one of the most sparsely populated corners of the state, where even today the nearest towns count their residents in the hundreds. Farm families drove in from across the Red River Valley, filled the new picnic grounds, swam, played ball, and toured the old mill. For one day, this little valley held a small city. It remains a measure of how much a green place with water can mean in a country of open wheat. All around us now is the other treasure of this park, the land itself. When the farms spread across the Old Lakebed, nearly every acre of native landscape in this valley went under the plow. This park is the great exception, and walking it is the closest thing there is to seeing this country as the first settlers saw it. It is not wilderness on a grand scale, just 400 honest acres. But out here, that is precious beyond measure. Naturalists describe Old Mill as an island of original landscape in a sea of cropland, and from above that is exactly how it looks, a ribbon of green valley winding through geometric fields. Within its boundaries survive most of the plant communities this region once held. The river bottom forest still carries most of its original plants and animals. Small patches of oak savanna and dry prairie hold out on the gravelly beach ridges, and wet prairie survives in the low, moist ground. It is a living sample book of the old Red River Valley, pressed between pages of wheat. The wildlife here reflects a park caught between forest and prairie worlds. Deer and even moose move through the valley, which acts as a natural corridor across the farmland. Snowshoe hares, creatures of the northern forest, share the park with white-tailed jackrabbits, animals of the open plains, a pairing you will not find in many places. Around 100 bird species reside here, and lucky birders can see black-billed magpies of the west and scarlet tanagers of the eastern forests in the same park. Ground-nesting marsh hawks, known today as northern harriers, cruise low over the grass all summer. And the old mill still runs. Restoration began in 1952, and the Case Company confirmed that the engine was indeed built in 1878. In 1958, the restored mill was dedicated and opened to the public, an effort so admired that it earned an Award of Merit from the Minnesota Historical Society. And in 1959, a George Washington Honor Medal from the Freedom's Foundation at Valley Forge. In 1973, the Larson Mill was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Every year the park fires the old engine, belts it to the millstones, and grinds flour, steam hissing over the valley just as it did in John Larson's day. Our loop is closing now, back through the shady valley of the Middle River. This little park holds an entire American story in 400 acres, a vanished glacial sea, ox carts on ancient beaches, a family that rebuilt its mill until it could not be broken, and Depression-era craftsmen who turned a river into a swimming pond. Old Mill State Park will never be famous, and honestly, that is part of its charm. It simply keeps its stories, its stonework, and its steam engine ready for anyone willing to make the drive. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.